Welcome to the latest episode of Prescribing Growth. This is the series where we talk to some of the top minds in auto reconditioning about what it looks like to grow a successful business. My name is Matt McAllister. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Mobile Tech RX. Today's guest is the owner of the Dent Shop. He is the creator of the Paul Kordon pricing matrix. It'd be weird if his name wasn't Paul Kordon, but it is.
But it is.
Paul, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
We just spent about 10 minutes talking that we should have been filming about the state of the industry. And I'm super excited to jump into your thoughts on what modern day auto reconditioning looks like or needs to look like. But first, give us the lay of the land. What is Dent Shop? What is your company doing, handling your mix of hail, retail? Fill us in on where you're at currently.
Absolutely. So I'm about a 21-year vet in the industry. Started off as a route tech, working for another company as an employee, and spent about 19 years doing that. And over the last couple of years, I decided to become an independent hail chaser. That's what I did. And then the opportunity came up for me to join forces with my brother, who had a shop. And the both of us are running and operating our local brick and mortar retail PDR shop in Northern Virginia, just outside of Washington, DC. So that's what we're doing now. We love it. I do a mixture of chasing hail in the season, and then in the off season coming home and really, getting my hands dirty and building and growing the business. And thanks to things like Mobile Tech RX and other technology, man, we're able to continue to run our business from the road. Be able to, give our guys the information that they need and keep the thing going while we're working.
So as an outsider to the industry, the first time I heard your name was associated with something like a pricing matrix.
Yep.
Give me the story. How did that come to be?
Yeah.
Where'd the idea come from?
So I was operating as an independent technician, and what I found was that there was no process for me to estimate damage. The estimates were primarily arbitrary numbers that would come out of my head, depending on how I felt or what I thought about the damage that was sitting in front of me on a customer's car. And I just got irritated and tired of the fact that there was no consistency. I needed something to be more consistent. And I started messing around with an estimating process, is what I like to call it. A lot of guys associate the price guide with a price, but the real beauty and the magic of it is the process behind the price. So the dollar figure doesn't always matter. It does, but it's not the most important thing. The process is the most important thing. And so I continued to develop this price guide process, and as I learned more, I added more detail to it and more factors. For those who know about it, it takes into consideration three factors or three elements when you're estimating a vehicle, and that's size of the damage, any of the variables or factors that affect the damage, and then any of the R&I or removal and installation of the parts that need to come apart in order to fix that damage. And that gives us a total. It's really as simple as those three steps. Now there's a bit more that goes into it, but if we condense it down to 3 steps, that's it.
And what year was that? What year was that project?
So I was probably actively using a price guide for the last, I would say, 6 to 7 years.
Okay.
But it really kind of came to the forefront, I would say probably a good 5 to 7 years ago, roughly.
So you're 21 years in as a whole.
As a whole.
About 12, 13 years in is when you discovered this.
Something like that, yep.
Outside of the pricing matrix, outside of the dent, the hail chasing, what's your entry into this industry, into auto reconditioning?
So you mean from the beginning?
Yeah.
So I was selling education loans, newly married, pregnant wife, and a friend of mine was fixing cars, doing paintless dent repair. And he said, why don't you come check out what I do? And I'm a pretty energetic guy. I don't do great for sitting behind a computer for 8 hours a day. And I did like the sales part of it. I'm good at that. But I didn't like it, so I went and checked out what he did. And I thought, this is really interesting. New scene every day, new car, new dent. And I decided to give it a shot and never looked back. I would call myself a career dent guy now.
So from that first introduction to dent repair, how long did it take to call that your full-time job?
It was pretty quick. As soon as I started training, I knew I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure out how to make this happen. Yeah, I just said, I'm going to be a dent guy. I didn't know that I'd be, at this point, be in it for 21 years and kind of looking back over it and going, man, I don't regret anything. I really enjoy this industry. and I'm looking forward to the future of it. Guys like you and Mobile Tech RX really help to make it more enjoyable, make it more exciting.
So you have a sales background, which is interesting. Did you bring that with you to the PDR side? Was your first focus entirely foundational of tactical skills, or did you find yourself pretty successful early on because you were able to bring an outside perspective into the?
So I think one of the things I think I had grown up understanding was having to sell myself. I wouldn't have been able to tell you this early on in my career, but now what I would say, and I do say to guys, you know, if I'm talking with them one-on-one or in a seminar setting, so I'll say, if you can sell yourself, then you can sell anything. People will buy anything you're selling if they buy you. So I knew from an early age that I always needed to sell myself. I don't know if I would have understood it back then, but I do now. And that sales background certainly helped me to get past the hump of learning the skills, because quite frankly, there's many of us that have done not great repairs and still made money doing it. What fills the delta there, the gap, is sales.
Is that something you were pretty good at early on in your PDR career?
I think it was something that was a bit more natural for me. Sure. Yeah, I think I was good at sales. And now I would say that I feel very, very comfortable selling almost anything.
How do you feel like that skill set is as a teachable skill set? Is that, I know you do some training yourself. If a new PDR spent 18 months learning the skills, feels pretty confident, has his tools, has his truck, whatever he's got.
Sure.
What does he need to do to step up his sales game?
So I usually tell guys the first thing they need to do is understand their true value, the value of what they do. It's easy for a dent guy to walk up to a car, fix a small door ding, collect his money, and feel like it's no big deal, especially one who's seasoned and who is good at what he does. His skill level is high. But what I try to encourage guys to remember is the amount of time and energy they spent getting to that point where they can fix a small ding to perfection in just a few minutes. I believe, you know, according to the price guide, if you look at the prices, I believe a small door ding that you can fix in just a few minutes is worth a certain amount of money.
There's also, there seems to be a huge perception difference between an industry professional and a consumer. And we're currently sitting at Mobile Tech Expo, and there's a Dent Olympics competition happening over there, where these dents are going to be judged by industry professionals. Right. And I promise you, I could walk in and look at the side of that car and not see a single difference in any of them. Yeah. But Eric, my boss, our CEO, could tell you the 0.02% difference in every one. And that to me is where the business component of this industry is so fascinating, because there is so much given to the quality of the skill, and I think that is applaudable, and that's fantastic. Because you want somebody offering a service to care deeply about being great at that service. Right. But for the consumer's sake, I care also significantly about how I'm dealing with you as a person, how I found you through your marketing, what your pricing structure and philosophy looks like. Right. Do I feel comfortable trusting you with my vehicle, even if you could do an awful job, but I could look at it and not know the difference? Right. And that mentality seems to, and out of everyone we've talked to in this series, seems to take a few years to get there.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I mean, I think there is an advantage to being able to put yourself in the customer's shoes and understand what they want. And the way that I say it and try to teach it to guys is I say, listen, let's dig into what the customer really wants. There's always more to the story. And what we're trying to do is dig in to find out what happened to your car, what is your end goal, and can I provide the solution to make you happy and get to your end goal? And if, as a PDR technician, I can do that, then awesome, because I'll make money doing that. And if I can't, but I provide you with the service to be able to point you in the right direction, even if I'm selling you away from my option, then I'm still serving the customer. And customer service is just too important to ignore if you're building a business. If we focus on the relational, it'll get us to the transactional with our customers, but the delta is customer service. It has to be there.
So what year was Dent Shop opened officially?
So Dent Shop officially opened 5 years ago. Okay. My brother's, I run it with my brother, and he's about a 18-year tech. So he's been in the business. I've been in the business in Virginia as well for about 20, 21 years. And he opened it, and then I joined him, and now we run it together and just having a blast doing it, growing the business.
So the 16 years from start to dent shop opening, was that chasing hail? What did that look like for you?
So for me, I always worked for a local company. I spent my time working for a local company doing route work and retail work, body shops, dealerships. And then Tim spent about 5 years working for the same company, and then he went on the hail trail. And he spent the last 15 years on the hail trail or so. So yeah.
Wow, it's a pretty wide collection of specialties within PDR. Were you always more inclined to think differently about marketing your business?
Yes. As a matter of fact.
How did you execute that working for another company?
It was very difficult. I had to sell the value of marketing. Then I had to sell the idea why one channel for marketing might be better than another, why we should attempt to market in this area versus another. And it was difficult because not being at the helm and driving the ship meant that just because I wanted to do it didn't mean that it fit in with the goal of the owner of the business. So it was a very difficult thing to do. However, I knew that within my sphere of influence, I could market to the best of my ability.
What were the early steps you took in that self-brand, that personal brand marketing?
So I jumped on board with a personal brand in Instagram and in Facebook. I would be, pretty vocal in some of the forums, and then I found myself speaking at a few seminars and asking questions about really what it came down to. Is I saw guys fixing dents on cars that were really impressive, and I wanted to find out, well, how am I doing? Am I charging the same money that these guys are charging? Are we in the same ballpark, or what's going on? And I found that there were a lot of talented guys who weren't charging enough for their work, in my opinion. And I knew that I was making more money on the same damage and doing it pretty steadily. And so I just asked the question, why did you charge this much and not this much? And then I would give them my feedback that I thought they could get more money. And then they asked the question, well, how? And that's when I began to share, what I was doing on my own. And I'm really proud of it. I just wish I were smarter and figured out how to make money on it.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
So then what was the push to leave the company you were working for and start Dent Shop? Obviously there's a brother connection there.
Yeah, there's a brother connection. He started it before I left Dent Masters, I'm sorry. But I was at a place in my career, 19 years in, where I was ready for more, and it didn't fit with the company's objective. Took the first opportunity I could jump on to push hail in April 2018. So that's how that went.
Well, I'm interested in some of the biggest challenges you saw going from working for another company. I'm sure the grass always looks greener.
Sure.
What did you see that was surprising to you when you left that organization?
Well, they're operating as an employee. You're not aware of all of the things that happen in the front office and back office. You just don't know. Because I had not owned the company, I didn't have to make a phone call to find out where I could find liability insurance or garage keepers or workers' comp and get the employee's information to the insurer and pay the premium. And you're just not aware of all that stuff. And so you jump in, and as you go, oh wow, I'm supposed to have this and I need to do that. And before you know it, you've got a full-time job just managing and building a company. And that's when you really start to dig in and look for tools, and you start to go, oh, now I see why certain tools are so important.
Do you feel like your investment in technology as a business owner is unique in this industry?
I would say yes and no. Yes, because I think that I tend to be a bit more aggressive in investing in technology for the purpose of my business. And no, because I now see a lot of widespread acceptance and integration of technology within, the PDR community and industry. And I think it's only bettering the industry.
What technology is most interesting to you right now?
Ooh, right now. There are a couple things. Do I have to pick one?
Let's hear it all.
I love the technology in the estimating portion of the business. I think the technology for modern cars with ADAS systems and calibration and sensors and things like that is very interesting, something we need to pay attention to. And I think some of the technology that powers our marketing is really, really interesting. It's amazing what technology can do. I'm blown away. I'm learning more myself every day.
What kind of marketing technology is Dent Shop using right now?
So we're actually currently integrating a CRM that's being built for what we do. And within the CRM, we have these powerful tools that'll help us manage our social media, help us manage our leads and our CSI and all this other stuff. And it's just, it's amazing. It is an investment. It certainly costs money and time, but with the right team, the right tools, I mean, I think it can really do some amazing things for our company. You know,
how would you balance the brain power it takes you're still fixing dents? I mean, you are still a top-notch PDR professional.
Sure.
While also being a business owner, and a business owner has to think about, like you mentioned, finances, marketing, one-to-one sales.
Yeah.
How do you balance all of those things and still do them all well?
It's hard. I think it's doable. I think ultimately it's going to come down to having the right people on your team and then being able to delegate appropriately so that certain parts of the business can be taken care of while I have to focus on other parts. You know, when you're developing a CRM with somebody who's managing that for you and leading it, you have to answer a lot of detailed questions. And for me, getting into the weeds of the details takes a lot of energy out of me. I'm a high level, big picture, bullet point guy.
What's your team look like at Dent Shop right now? How many people? What do they do?
Yeah, great question. Dent Shop is a total of 4 people. We have 2 guys that work for us. They're technicians, and they do a great job. And then Tim and I handle a lot of the heavier hit stuff or complex damage. And then we also run and build and grow the business on a daily basis. I mean, there's not a day where there's not something for us to do on the business side of things. And I find myself really loving it as I do it.
What's most exciting? I mean, there's obviously some risk and fear involved with leaving a company and putting all of your eggs in your own basket.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest reward so far?
So for me, I think the biggest reward is innovation. The biggest reward is thinking about how to do something in a new way, finding a new channel, finding a new untapped potential for business.
Which marketing channels are you most focused on today?
Today, right now, we are probably most focused on making sure that our Google SEO is set up right, social media, and then there's a bit of a ground game. I like the ground game. I like mixing it up with people in person. And so we've got a few ways that we do that and some new ways that we're getting ready to kind of jump into and see how it works.
So if a person starting out, maybe they've been doing it for a few years, maybe they're in a similar situation where they've been working for another organization and are thinking about taking the leap of just about everyone we've talked to in this series of owning something.
Yeah.
They have to learn everything, but it's hard to learn everything. What would you prioritize as the skills that they need to go acquire for themselves?
Well, it all comes down to the ability to fix a dent. Make sure your hard skills are on point. Then after that, make sure your work is great, and then figure out how to get seen and how to let people know who you are and what you do.
So day one, when you joined Dent Shop, which was an existing brand,
right?
What are some of the first things you did?
So some of the first things I did were to, quite frankly, go do some door knocking, develop some relationships with some body shops, with some dealerships. Being in the area for so long, you know, I had there were a lot of people within the automotive reconditioning industry that knew who I was, and just kind of let them know what was going on, what's new. And so we go into a store and we say, hey, here's what we do. You may already have a guy, and we're not asking to step on any toes, but we'd like an opportunity at anything that he says no to, you know. And from a ground game perspective, you know, that's one way that we've gained some ground with some of these stores. And then we follow it up with, and this is a key part, is just killer customer service. Make things easier, faster, and more profitable for our client base.
That's clearly a passion of yours. How do you filter that down to a team? How do you ensure that your brand, everyone who represents your brand, has the same customer service skills and passion that you do?
So that's really comes down to culture. That's a cultural question. How do we create the culture where everybody kind of, wears that badge just as proudly as I do? And I think it's in helping the team to understand that we're here to serve people, that our business is more about people than anyone else. And if we can get the people part right, that the transactions will come. And when our guys, it really has to be modeled. Our guys need to see us talking to people. Our guys need to see how we handle tough situations. Our guys need to see how we handle when we break an item or scratch a car or where something doesn't go the way that we planned. And then they need to learn how we handle that situation.
So how do you break down, and curious for your take here, that the pre, during, and post communication with a customer? So a customer has already said, yep, going with you, but haven't yet brought the car in.
Right.
What is it all email? Is it phone call? Do you prefer to have 99% of it face to face? How do you manage this communication, and what is your intent at every stage?
Yeah. So, well, we communicate with all of those mediums. We'll text, we'll email, we will phone call, we'll video chat if we have to, we'll face to face. I'm happy to do any of it. That's how we would. I mean, we'll do it any way that the customer prefers, because quite frankly, it's easier to do it on their terms. But what I tell my customers is that my job is to give them information. Their job is to figure out what to do with that information according to their goals. And so my job is to make sure, number one, that the customer is informed of what's going on, but that they also feel comfortable.
Certainly the element of trust, or the consumer versus professional trust in this specific industry, I mean, is well documented. There's been jokes about it told by stand-up comedians for decades.
Absolutely.
How have you invested in tools to make that trust more likely? Because I think one of the big issues we see in pricing, and it's the first objection we at Mobile Tech RX hear every time we show somebody an estimate and it's 40% higher than they would have ever done it. They said, that person's going to walk out the door.
Right.
They don't trust.
Yeah.
But your value is also associated with how educated and how much a customer trusts you. So what are you investing in to be able to capture prices that are higher, to overcome the objection of what 99% of the industry believes is that if I show a higher price, I'm just going to lose all my customers?
So I think there's a couple of ways to do that, but I think primarily what we do is we start off by killing them with kindness and customer service from the beginning, from the very first interaction. People like to do business with people they know and they like and they trust, and that's the whole goal, is to build that rapport with them. I think that's a combination of information. I think I say in some seminars, I talk about how while we're estimating, we should be educating, and we should be explaining the process. We should be explaining what's happening with their vehicle. What's great about a tool like Mobile Tech RX is that it gives us data to back up what we're saying and show them what's really happening, and that helps to support, the next interaction with the next customer.
So this is a business owner industry. There are quite a few people who, whether it's themselves or 2 people or 100 people, they own their businesses, which means that when they make investments, it's not their boss's investment, it's theirs. It's the revenue that their business has earned.
Yeah.
I completely understand the questioning of where to take risks and where to invest. And in chatting with you, you take a lot of risks and investments in technology and new channels and new tactics. How do you measure the success of those things? How do you decide where you're going to invest and why you're going to invest? And how would you share advice with a guy who's maybe 1 person or 2 people, who knows that if he's got to buy a marketing tool or spend money on Mobile Tech RX, that he's going to be pretty concerned of whether that's going to help him actually make money or if it's just going to be money out of his pocket?
Yeah, I mean, what I would encourage him to do is ask questions, talk to people who have done it, spend some time researching and understanding what the opportunity is and what the options are that he has. And for me, we feel like we're always on a mission of trying to figure out how to, again, make things work faster and easier for people, not just for our customers, but we're also looking at our business and the choices we make in our investments in technology from that standpoint. What is going to free up our time and make our jobs faster and easier, not because we're lazy and we want an easy life, but because our time is valuable. We can't get it back.
So how do you see the next generation of auto reconditioning professionals impacting this industry?
Man, they're younger. They're more agile. They understand digital better than generations before mine. I think they have massive opportunity. I think the learning curve to learn this business is shorter. The tools are getting better. The help of the internet and the digital age the opportunities are endless. It's incredible. If you I never would have thought 20 years ago that, I would have been using some of these tools now. I don't think I could have dreamed it up. You know what I mean?
What's your advice for that generation as they look to be the next groups breaking into markets?
I would say, I would probably tell them not to over-depend on technology. Say they still need to develop some people skills, some selling skills, some ability to look a person in the eye, shake their hand, and present themselves, sell themselves. I'd go back to, if they can learn how to sell themselves, they'll probably be able to sell anything.
Any mistakes you've made that impact how you work today?
Yeah, a lot of them.
I hope so.
You want me to tell you about them?
Tell me about your perfection.
Right. Mistakes that I've made. I think that I would have probably spent more time developing my sales and leadership earlier in my life. Focusing on having stronger character and integrity, and then I would have done that earlier.
So I'm interested in your take on this. I know it's a bit outside of your specific industry, but we're seeing the auto reconditioning industry as a whole, and that's detailing, paint, wheel, tint, start to have these pricing conversations about standardized pricing, about we've been complaining for years about not getting the value of our work. I'm interested in your take on that. The PDR industry has gone through this shift over the last 5 years of recognizing that any dent should be this much and here's why.
Right.
What do you think about that happening in other industries? Have you had conversations with detailers about pricing?
Well, so I haven't had, I have had conversations with other detailers about that. And they would admit it's all over the board, and I would imagine that inconsistency for them is just, it makes it difficult, I actually think it's smart. I think it's interesting. I think it's the right direction.
Does it impact PDR? I mean, do you see these industries connecting in any way as they all rise?
Yeah, I think so. I think collectively speaking, when a detailer gets better at estimating and pricing his work, what he's doing in essence is training his customer for what his value is, his work is. From a high level, if you look at it as, we're kind of in the blue collar version of automotive repair. We're blue collar automotive repair is what we are. And as those operations become more valuable to the customer, I think a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So customers see detailing as more valuable. They might start to see paintless dent repair as more valuable, maybe not negotiate quite as much with, the price. And I think it will affect it as a whole. But yeah, I'm excited for the other parts of the reconditioning industry to become more professional. That's a big part of what I believe a consistent estimating process has brought to the table for PDR.
And I think it also comes back to the customer perspective. I mean, an uneducated customer doesn't see a huge separation from getting the glass chip in their windshield repaired versus PDR. It's all, I need my car fixed.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think the jokes told about auto body shops for the last 50 years and about being price gouged and need to have somebody else on the line to make sure that what you're charging them is accurate. We're all affected by that.
Yeah.
If you feel like you trust your local PDR shop, you're also more likely to trust somebody who implements similar tactics in detailing, in glass repair, in wheel repair, and whatever that is.
Yeah.
I think that overall customer mentality, that knowing if the detailing shop down the road has a great setup and a great system and is able to charge 30% more, and they're trusted because they know that's the value, that helps my PDR shop.
I think it comes down to, I think that customers want to know that the people that are making the repairs on their cars or that are detailing their vehicle really care about what they're doing. And I think when we as an industry, or when the detailing industry as a whole shows how much they care by adopting a process, by getting more professional, more organized, more detail oriented, I think that relays to the customer that we want to be taken seriously and that we take their needs seriously. And I really do believe that it will result in higher ticket prices. People want to be cared about, they want to be taken care of, and quite frankly, I think when we become more professional in our estimating and everything else, I think it shows that to the customer.
Paul, as somebody who's less than a year into this industry, working for Eric at Mobile Tech RX, it's clear the impact you've made. And outside of dent shop and your skills as a PDR tactician, the philosophies you have on pricing, the philosophies you have on business have filtered down to even the Paul Kordon matrix in our product.
Yeah.
So thank you for sitting down with us.
Yeah.
Appreciate all the work you've done to make this industry better. I think we're all grateful for you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course.
Thanks.